Welcome to the third video in the Mad Max Mega Review series. In this, we will cover the mixed bag that is Beyond Thunderdome. As Aton Molina pointed out in the comments of the last video, Mad Max is kinda like a combination between Fast and the Furious and Evil Dead. If those two movies got together and had a couple of kids, the Mad Max movies would be the result. And Beyond Thunderdome would kinda be like the kid that is the most polite, the most friendly, the most pleasant to be around, but he's just not as tough as his two other brothers. Some stuff in Beyond Thunderdome feels like Mad Max. It starts off with that same kind of tough edge, but it weirdly gets more and more PG as the movie goes on, until it just pulls the handbrake, slides sideways right into Peter Pan territory, resulting in a final chase scene in which nobody actually dies. Instead, people just get comedically hit in the face with frying pans. And that just doesn't feel right in a Mad Max movie. Actually, word around town is that Fast and the Furious was getting a little bit of action behind Evil Dead's back, and just saying, maybe Beyond Thunderdome has a different dad than he thinks he does, you know? Alright, let's start at the beginning. As I mentioned briefly in the last video, what the apocalypse of this post-apocalyptic world is seems to change with every movie. It's gone from being a dystopian future in the first, to post-apocalyptic in the second, with all the fuel running out, to now, in Beyond Thunderdome, nuclear holocaust. This is the first movie in which radiation is mentioned, atomic warfare is ever mentioned.
Hey, don't you understand? This is water, you can't live without it. What's a little fallout, huh?
Now, there were places like these, cities. They were called cities. Now, there's lots of them.
Cities.
But then this happened. This eclipse happened, and it's all finished. It just isn't there anymore.
So the general fan consensus on this is that the fuel started to run out in the first movie, had almost completely run out in the second movie, and the nukes dropped between the second and the third movies, between whatever countries were left over fighting for the last of the resources. And it looks like in Fury Road, it might change yet again to also include running out of water.
The world is almost out of water.
Water wars.
So maybe they're going for kind of a global warming type of thing there. But anyway, since all that stuff is only backstory, it doesn't really affect the plot of each movie all that much. What does matter is that civilization is gone. So Beyond Thunderdome begins with civilization returning. What? Okay, to be fair, this is the next logical step for the franchise, that we're starting to rebuild society after the apocalypse, but again, it just doesn't feel right for Mad Max. But I guess it depends on how much of a fan you are. I mean, I take issue with a lot of stuff in this movie, but for casual fans, you know, it's fine. It's fine, it's all totally fine. I'm just saying that because I'm going to point out a lot of stuff that I don't like, but I'm not saying that the movie is bad. Not at all. It's just a very watered down version of what I like to see in a Mad Max movie. It's much more mainstream, much more friendly version, and it has less of a distinct story than the others. There are some cool little continuity details, like after Max's face got busted up in the crash in Road Warrior, there was an effort to sort of make his left eye look a bit damaged in Beyond Thunderdome. Something that a lot of people wouldn't notice, but it's a cool little detail. So what is the story of Beyond Thunderdome? Well, that's more difficult to explain than it should be, because there's actually two movies kind of stuck together to create Beyond Thunderdome. There's movie 1 and there's movie 2. Movie 1 has Max finding his way to Buttertown in search of his vehicle that was stolen from him, and the only way he can get it back is to do this shady job for the local government, who is Tina Turner, who puts in a pretty solid performance. But this deal involves Max killing a giant in the Thunderdome arena.
He's Blaster!
which is how they settle all their disputes in this town. So Master Blaster provides the town with electricity, but because he's a real jerk about it, they just want to get rid of Blaster so that the brains, Master, will be a lot more cooperative. And Max is the only one that can beat Blaster in the Thunderdome because he is now Generic Action Man. Remember his quick reflexes in the last movie that were just a very simple character trait? Well, now he's got Super Ninja Jason Bourne, I can clear an entire room full of guys in less than a second fighting skills. Oh yeah, and he's got all the generic cliches to go along with it. The being able to sense an attack from behind cliche, the being asked to hand over your weapons and ends up handing over about 100 cliche, and don't forget the still managed to smuggle in a secret weapon cliche. Because that's what being a generic action man is all about. But like I said, this was the franchise's attempt to be more mainstream. I can't complain too much, because at least they stayed away from the I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of enemies but they all decide to attack me one at a time rather than taking me all at once cliche. So I guess it's okay. But Thunderdome does give us one of the most memorable characters in the whole franchise in Master Blaster. This is just a really cool idea. You've got a brain without a body, and you got a body without a brain, so they join together and they're super powerful. Mad Max needs to have colourful villains, and Master Blaster fits in with Toe Cutter, the Humongous, and Wares as very unique and memorable characters. But despite being memorable, Master Blaster does fall victim to the next biggest problem for this movie, that being, there are no real villains. Sure, in the movie 1 part of Beyond Thunderdome, you do have what seems to be villains in Master Blaster and even Tina Turner.
For those who took him, no mercy.
But by the end of the movie, kinda nobody is really even a bad guy anymore.
Ain't we a pair? Raggedy Man. Goodbye, soldier.
Which, who knows, that might have been part of the idea of showing civilization returning, so people are starting to become normal again, but come on, you need villains in a Mad Max movie. Villains are essential. The whole point of the character of Max is that he was a regular guy pushed over the edge by bad guys, so if there are no bad guys, then you can't really have Mad Max. It kind of leaves you scratching your head in the final chase scene as to why it's even happening at all, other than just because they need to have a chase scene in a Mad Max movie. But most of these problems do come up in the movie 2 part of Beyond Thunderdome. Movie 1 is overall really good. If they had just fleshed that out more and just had that as the movie, would have been fantastic. But unfortunately, movie 2 has to butt its head in. So let's talk about movie 2. So after the deal goes sour, Max, he's exiled out into the desert and movie 2 begins. Max is saved by a group of Peter Pan style Lost Boys, and this is a section that a lot of people take issue with. Seeing Max become sort of a surrogate father to an entire tribe of children, it's just a really weird and strange role to see Max in. I mean, if you want to have Max bond with a child, it should be like some kind of feral kid that he can relate to, since they're both scavengers and they're both survivors. That would work. Why didn't they do that? Oh, because they already did that in the last movie. You know, if you needed someone to save Max from the desert, it should have been the grown-up version of the feral kid from the last movie that finds him. That would have been really good. Or even if, like, the leader of this group of kids was that feral kid. There'd be a bit more reason for having it in there. But this is just kind of weird. However, there is one aspect of this whole Lost Boys thing that I really like. It turns out these kids ended up in the middle of the desert because a plane full of people was flying across the country when the nukes fell. They crashed, found this oasis, and the adults left the kids here as they went off searching for help, and evidently they never came back. But what's super interesting is that these kids have sort of turned what happened into a type of mythology for their little tribe sort of thing. The filmmakers even went so far as to actually develop a special way of speaking, a special kind of dialect for these kids that they've developed on their own.
And after the wreck, some had been jumped by Mr. Dead, but some had got the luck, and it leads them here. One look and they's got the hots for it. They word it planet Earth, and they says, we don't need the knowing, We can live here.
So I mean, if you're interested in mythology and legends and how these things start and sort of get incorporated into like customs and culture over history, then this is like a really cool insight on that type of thing. I mean, it's a little bit like the cargo cults of the Pacific. You know, where in World War II, the American military set up bases to fight the Japanese amongst all these little Pacific islands. And these little tribes of those islands, they'd never seen things like planes and tanks and helicopters and all that.
When the war was over, they went home, and a very curious thing happened. The natives of these islands, isolated from the outside world, lived virtually in the Stone Age, until the Americans came and went. Very soon afterwards, the natives began making straw and bamboo fetishes resembling airplanes, crude landing surfaces on their islands to tempt the visitors back.
This is kind of like those cargo cults. But if you have no interest in that kind of thing, then this whole section of the movie is just going to irritate you. But if you do find that kind of interesting, you won't mind the movie taking a pit stop in order to explore this a bit. But anyway, overall, Beyond Thunderdome, I mean, it sounds like I'm bagging it out, but I'm really not. It's a totally passable movie. It has like a solid score on Rotten Tomatoes, and if you're looking for more of like a family-friendly kind of Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome is the way to go. And it does provide a valuable contribution to the overall franchise of just rounding out this whole story of this world. We get to see before, during, and after the apocalypse. Beyond Thunderdome is kind of like the THOR of the Mad Max films, you know? It's no Winter Soldier, but neither is it an Iron Man 2. It's just kind of right there in the okay area. And it serves to complete the bridge of these movies. But the question now is, where does the new Fury Road movie fit into all this? Well, I've been looking forward to talking about that for quite a while now. So click on the icon here if you want to check it out. If it's not there yet, it will be there within a few days. Or you can check out any of my previous reviews about the Mad Max franchise. So thanks for watching. I am Bandit, this is Bandit Incorporated. Until next time, I will see you guys in the comments.